G'day Internet, welcome back to another video and back to the Amiga 2000. It's been a few weeks, actually it's been a bit longer than that, and I've been collecting some parts for some upgrades. Yes, I have a pile of parts. There's actually quite a bit to get through this video, so let's just get stuck into it. This is the first thing we're going to put in. It is a switchless DF0, DF1 switcher, so a boot switcher. Primarily because I want to be able to plug in my external Gotek into this machine. It's an external Gotek I use on several machines, and I want to be able to use it on the 2000. This simply goes in underneath one of the CIA chips, so it means pulling the old girl apart. Just a very quick side note, yes, it has yet another disk drive in it. The one that ended up in it at the end of the last video had to go to another project. This is actually a good PC Sanyo drive running a converter board, which Randall was very nice to donate to this machine. Thank you, Randall. So like I said, the selector goes under the even CIA, which is C301, this guy just here, so that needs to come out. Then making sure the notches lined up, this goes in here. And then this goes back in here. And in theory, that should be it. Now to boot up from an external Gotek, I simply hold Control Amiga or Amiga for, I think it's 3 or 4 seconds, and I should be able to boot off that. Actually, not quite right. That particular boot switcher is actually programmable when you make it. And you can choose either the external as the default or the internal as the default. That one is programmed as the external as the default, so in theory I should be able to power this up and it should just boot from that. So Turrican is on there, and in theory it should boot straight from the Gotek. There we go. Pretty sure it's looking for a mouse click. I haven't got a mouse plugged in. But if I take my copy of Interface and pop it in there, I should be able to go 1, 2, 3. And it's booting off the floppy disk. Nice. Now, if you remember from the first video, this is the 160 meg SCSI drive that I unceremoniously stole from an old Apple. As much as I love the sound of a ticking original SCSI hard drive, it's only a matter of time before this thing falls over. It is currently working, but I think you get my point. So we're going to replace it with this. This is a ZuluSCSI, which is essentially the newer version of the SD to SCSI that we've enjoyed for many, many years. This one does work a little differently in the sense that you don't actually use the SD card per se as your hard drive. You use hard drive image files on the SD. Now, for my GVP SCSI card, I've already gone and made and printed a little kind of adapter plate, which uses the original mounting points for the hard drive. Link in the description if you think you can use it. And this, if we plug it in, just goes kind of about there. So because this uses a normal SD card and a FAT32 one at that, the only thing I haven't been able to organise is basically an extension piece that might kind of, you know, poke out the back of the computer. It's something I will come back to. And with that all mounted, and yes, a power cable magically appeared because I forgot that I needed one. And it's a good thing I actually made it with some DuPont cables because, well, 12 volt on the card is here. 12 volt on the ZuluSCSI is over here. So all these wires have to do a twist. Anyway, that's now done. And we have our SD card, a normal size SD card, which I was actually quite pleased about because a while back I bought a bunch of 16 gig SD cards, got home and went, oh, wait a minute, I need micro SD. So I've got a stack of these, and so this will go nicely with this project. Beautiful. Now, before the SCSI controller goes back in, one last little upgrade is I'm going to pull the Kickstart 2 ROM out and replace it with a 3.1. Nice. So I've booted back up from the installation disk for the SCSI controller. Now, I'm not going to exactly go into how to set up the SD card, but essentially it's a FAT32. There are two files on there, dh0.hda and dh1.hda, which you create in WinUAE. I will, however, put a video up kind of there where Chris Edwards runs you through how to do it. Now, you don't actually have to do it here on the machine. You can actually do all this in WinUAE. I just, for some reason, prefer to do it on the actual machine. So let me spark up Fast Prep and we'll go from there. All right, we're in Fast Prep. We can just go automatic. We can go one partition and hit enter. And look at that, one 493 megabyte DH0, which is the size I made the HDA file. We can go prep and format, proceed. Oh, total partition size exceeds total drive capacity? That's weird. Oh yeah, 286, 293. I wonder why I did that. Okay, so let's make that 86, I guess. Prep and format, proceed. And then the GVP software will actually allow you to install the OS. So on my Gotek, I'm going to flip to, where are we? Workbench 1.3, sorry, not 1.3, I want 3.1, haha, right. And go proceed. It doesn't like to read a 3.1 disk? Why not? So trying to get Workbench 3.1 onto this SCSI card just failed. Far as I can tell, the drivers, the GVP drivers, that the only ones I can find are on this ADF that I've currently booted off, which loads this thing, just don't work with 3.1. Part of this install process actually copies all the Workbench files across and it just fails. So at the moment I'm going back to 205 just to see if I can get a bootable machine. And the reason the Gotek is here and the boot selector is here, because for a while it just refused to boot from floppy. Be it this one or the Gotek when it was plugged externally, whatever, it would only boot from a half formatted hard drive. I'm still not sure what was going on with that. All right, so I got 205 installed, and look, just purely for the sake of it, I'm actually now going to try and run the Workbench 3.1 installer from, well, here. Well, let's see how we go. The light on the SCSI controller is flashing it, so it's obviously doing something. All right, it seems to have worked, so let's pop out that so it doesn't try and reboot to the install disk and see what happens. Hey, I think it worked. Yeah, I think that's right, 3.1. Okay, cool. So when I set up that SD card, I created the two hard files. One is a 500 meg kind of OS drive, and the other one was a 4 gig data drive. Workbench 205 has got a limit of a 2 gig partition as far as I can tell. So as you can see, I've created data 1 and data 2, which are both 2 gig. What I'd really like is just simply a 4 gig drive here. So let's see if I can do that. And can I do it just with HD Toolbox now? Drives have been added or removed from system. Yeah, sure. Okay, this should be it here. So partition drive, delete partition, make that the full size, and okay. Save changes to drive. Warning, the operation will destroy the partitions. Yes, that's fine. Exit. A reboot is required. Sure. Aha. Right, there's DH1. And I should be able to go format disk, volume name, let's call it data, sure, quick format, format. Aha! And if I go data, is it just information? There you go. Seems to be good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and install a bunch of software on here. Just the usual kind of stuff like Directory Opus and some games and what have you. So with the working OS on the ZuluSCSI, I went back to try and have a look at why the boot switcher wasn't working, and I'm stuffed if I can work it out. But if I take my Gotek, set it up as DS1, so drive select 1, and plug it into the second cable here, it works. It's currently loading Elite 2. There we go. So the only thing I can think of is that that boot selector is actually labeled for Amiga 500, which doesn't have a second internal drive. So I can only assume that it's looking for something here as DF1 to swap. But it only happens with the ZuluSCSI. Absolutely no idea. So at the moment I'm 3D printing another fascia and some standoffs, and it'll go here and I'll buy another Gotek for my external caddy. But speaking of Elite, this is actually a really good opportunity to take a quick benchmark. Most Amiga owners know that Elite 2 on a standard 500 or 2000 runs like an absolute pig. So let's take a quick look at that before we get to the next upgrade. And there's our classic intro scene. It's 3D, and you'll see it really start to struggle once the ship comes on screen. So what is this upgrade, you may ask? It is this. This is a GVP Impact 68030 with an FPU and 8 meg of RAM. Quick side note, I've actually lost a stack of time today trying to get this SCSI working, because this is actually the quite rare and expensive Guru ROM, and I'm absolutely stuffed if I can get the ZuluSCSI to work here with that, hence why the other GVP SCSI controller's in there. So this is now going in there. And this really couldn't be any simpler. It goes into the CPU expansion slot down in here. Which is quite the tight fit. There we go. In it goes. And that's pretty much it. And so let's boot up Elite 2 again. And already that is so much quicker and smoother. In the process of collecting all the parts for all these upgrades, I decided to go the whole hog and get this. This is a little adapter that goes into the Agnes socket, and it allows you to put in an 8375 Agnes, which will give 2 meg of chip RAM. So this goes into there, and that goes into there. And if I'm looking at this right, this simply goes into there, and this needs to be soldered somewhere. It needs to go to pin 36 of Gary, just up here. And there we go, 2 meg of chip RAM, sweet! So that's a little disappointing. I actually have to pull this back out. Once I tested this, I put the accelerator card back in and all the screen went really, really wobbly. Wobbly. Wobbly's a new word. Wobbly. Yeah, pulled it back out and everything's fine. So that's a bit annoying. But if I've got a choice between 2 meg of chip and an 030 accelerator, I think I'll take the accelerator. So one last little bit is that I found a bracket to mount this in. Well, I sort of did. The ZuluSCSI actually shares the exact same footprint as the old SCSI to SD, which is awesome. I found this bracket here, which I printed and realized partway through that it mounts the actual device the wrong way round for what I need. Unless I wanted to try and do a 180 twist on a 50-way ribbon cable in a very small amount of space, didn't seem like the best idea. So I basically took this design, flipped the actual carrying and whole bit, and there it is. And I can now, if I can reach it, get to my SD card. And there is the Gotek mounted. Well, with everything installed, I guess there's really not much else to do other than to, well, tidy up the disaster zone that has become my bench, button the old girl up, and enjoy some games. And there we go. I managed to complete, well, most of the upgrades that I intended to. I mean, look, everything's there. I'm still not sure what that bug was when I put the 2 meg of chip RAM in with the 8375. But as you saw, disabling the 2 meg of RAM on the SCSI card seems to have fixed it, so that's all fine. The 2 meg of fast RAM in this machine really isn't going to make that much difference. And it's still kind of weird that once I put the ZuluSCSI in, the boot switcher refused to boot externally, but is quite happy to boot here, plugged into the cable. But like I said, I've already gone and ordered another Gotek, so that will go in the caddy, so on and so forth. And it actually looks quite neat in there anyway. Now, the machine has obviously taken quite a sizable performance improvement. Here's a quick example of what SynthInfo now reports on the machine. And given that, well, apart from the 2 meg of chip RAM, this is all really kind of like era correct, I guess is a good term. I mean, I'm still running that old school SCSI card. I've got the old school Accelerator in there, which I'm absolutely in love with. So yeah, I think this is actually now a really capable Amiga 2000. But what is the benefit of all this? Well, like I said, I was going to go and enjoy it, and I did. And here is a selection of some games that now run quite a bit better than on a stock Amiga 2000. So what's next for the Mighty 2000? I'm actually not sure yet. I'm just really happy with the way it is. This is, I think, going to become my go-to Amiga. I mean, I know I've got the 600 with the Furia in it and stuff like that, but come on, look at it. But for now, that will pretty much do it. If you liked the video, click like, subscribe, all the usual YouTube-y stuff. As always, a massive shout out to my Patreons who are scrolling up the screen as I speak, because without them, I wouldn't be able to improve Amigas like I have here. And if you'd like to help support the channel, there is a link in the description. But until then, I'll see you in the next one.